I'm a hospital cafeteria cook. A doctor collapsed after eating my food and whispered, "Check the insulin." The doctor hit the floor at exactly 12:47 p.m., right between the salad bar and the beverage station. One moment she was walking with her tray toward a table. The next moment she was on the ground, convulsing. Her lunch scattered across the tile in a mess of chicken Caesar salad and iced tea. The cafeteria, which had been buzzing with the usual lunch rush noise, went silent for about 3 seconds before erupting into controlled chaos. Medical professionals rushing to help, people shouting for crash carts and glucose monitors, someone hitting the code button that sent alarms screaming through the hospital. I was standing at the grill station, spatula in hand, frozen as I watched the scene unfold 30 feet away. My first thought, the one that turned my stomach to ice, was that she'd just eaten my food. My chicken, my salad, my cooking had just put a doctor on the floor. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 42 years old, and I've been the head cook at Riverside Memorial Hospital's cafeteria for 6 years. Before that, I spent 15 years working my way up through various restaurant kitchens, from dishwasher to line cook to sous chef, before burning out on the restaurant industry's brutal hours and impossible margins. The hospital job was supposed to be stable, predictable, safe. Institutional cooking doesn't have the glamour or creativity of restaurant work, but it also doesn't have the stress or the screaming chefs or the 3 a.m. shifts. I cook for 300 to 400 people per day. Hospital staff, patients' families, visitors, the occasional patient who's mobile enough to make it down to the cafeteria. I make comfort food mostly, nothing fancy. Meatloaf, roasted chicken, pasta dishes, soups. Food that's familiar and satisfying. Food that tastes like someone's grandmother made it. I take pride in my work, even if it's not glamorous. I follow food safety protocols religiously, maintain my kitchen cleaner than most restaurants I've worked in, and haven't had a single food safety violation in 6 years. And now a doctor was on the floor, possibly dying after eating my chicken. The emergency response team had her stabilized within 3 minutes. Medical professionals are good at emergencies when they happen in their own building. They got an IV started, checked her blood sugar, began administering treatment. I watched from my station, unable to move, unable to process what was happening. My assistant cook, a young guy named DeMarco, touched my arm. "Marcus, man, are you okay? You look like you're gonna pass out too." "That's my food," I said, my voice sounding strange in my own ears. "She ate my food and now she's on the floor. What if I poisoned her? What if there's something wrong with the chicken?" They were loading the doctor onto a gurney now, preparing to rush her upstairs to the emergency department. As they wheeled her past my station, her eyes fluttered open for just a moment. She looked directly at me, and with what seemed like enormous effort, she grabbed the arm of the paramedic pushing her gurney. Her lips moved, and even from 10 feet away I could read what she was saying. "Check the insulin." Then her eyes closed again, and they rushed her out of the cafeteria, leaving nothing but the scattered remains of her lunch on the floor, and a cafeteria full of people staring at me, like I'd just committed murder with a serving spoon. Hospital security arrived within 5 minutes. 2 officers, a man and a woman, both with that professional courtesy that doesn't quite hide suspicion. They asked me to step away from the grill, to come with them to the cafeteria manager's office for some questions. My stomach was churning, my hands were shaking, but I went quietly. I had nothing to hide. I hadn't done anything wrong. The cafeteria manager, Patricia Herrera, was already in her office when we arrived, along with someone from hospital administration I'd never met before. A thin man in his 50s wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. He introduced himself as Richard Caldwell, Vice President of Risk Management, which is hospital speak for the person who handles lawsuits and liability. "Mr. Webb," Caldwell said, his voice calm and measured, "can you walk me through everything you prepared for today's lunch service? Every ingredient, every step of your process. I did, going through my routine in excruciating detail. The chicken had been delivered yesterday from our regular supplier, stored properly in the walk-in refrigerator, checked for temperature and quality this morning. I'd seasoned it with salt, pepper, garlic powder, and herbs, exactly as I always did. And no one else has gotten sick? I asked. Just Dr. Reeves? Just Dr. Reeves, Patricia confirmed. We've been monitoring everyone who ate lunch today. No other symptoms, no other issues. She paused. Marcus, I need you to understand something. We're not accusing you of anything. But when a staff member collapses after eating cafeteria food, we have to investigate every possibility. She sensed something. I told them, right before they took her away. She looked at me and said, check the insulin. What does that mean? The security officers exchanged a glance. Caldwell's expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. That could mean several things, he said carefully. Dr. Reeves is a diabetic. She might have been trying to tell the EMTs about her own insulin levels. Or she might have been alerting us to something else. Something else? I asked. The hospital has protocols for investigating potential tampering with food or medication, Caldwell said. We'll be reviewing security footage from the cafeteria, interviewing staff and patients who were present, and having the remains of Dr. Reeves's lunch analyzed by our lab. In the meantime, we need you to suspend service from the main kitchen until we can verify there's no contamination or safety issue. You're shutting down my kitchen, I said, feeling the words like a punch to my gut. Temporarily, Patricia said quickly, just until we can rule out any problems. It's standard protocol, Marcus. It's not personal. But it felt personal. It felt like my career, my reputation, my 6 years of clean inspections and safe food were being flushed away because of something I didn't understand. I was sent home for the rest of the day, told to remain available for additional questions. I drove back to my apartment in a daze, unable to shake the image of Dr. Reeves on the floor, unable to stop hearing her whispered words. Check the insulin. I spent that evening obsessively Googling insulin overdose symptoms, food contamination, diabetic emergencies, anything that might explain what had happened. I learned that too much insulin could cause hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, which presented with symptoms like confusion, sweating, rapid heartbeat, and seizures. That matched what I'd seen when Dr. Reeves collapsed. But how could my food have caused an insulin overdose? Insulin wasn't an ingredient in anything I cooked. It wasn't even stored in the cafeteria, unless someone had deliberately added it to her food. The thought made me sick, but I couldn't shake it. What if someone had poisoned Dr. Reeves? What if they'd used my chicken as the delivery method? That would explain why she'd specifically said to check the insulin. She was trying to tell people she'd been poisoned, not that she'd made a mistake with her own medication. But who would poison a doctor? And why use the cafeteria food to do it? I called Patricia at 8 p.m., knowing she often worked late. She answered on the third ring, sounding exhausted. Marcus, I was about to call you. Dr. Reeves is stable. She's in the ICU, but she's conscious and talking, and she's insisting that someone deliberately poisoned her. My heart started pounding. So it wasn't the food? It wasn't something I did wrong? The lab analyzed what was left of her lunch, Patricia said. They found insulin mixed into the salad dressing. A massive dose, enough to send anyone into hypoglycemic shock. But Marcus, here's the thing. That dressing didn't come from your kitchen. It came from individual packets that patients can add themselves at the salad bar. Someone tampered with her specific salad after you prepared it. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by a new horror. Someone had poisoned a doctor using the cafeteria as their weapon. Someone had used my food service as cover for attempted murder. The police are involved now, Patricia continued. Real police, not just hospital security. They'll want to talk to you tomorrow, get a formal statement. And Marcus, they're going to want to review all the security footage from the cafeteria. They need to see everyone who was near the salad bar between when Dr. Reeves entered and when she collapsed. I'll help however I can, I told her. But Patricia, If someone's using the cafeteria to poison people, is anyone safe? Should we even be serving food? She was quiet for a moment. The police and hospital administration are reviewing all protocols. For now, we're implementing additional security measures. No self-service stations, all food served directly by staff, increased surveillance. We're treating this as an active threat situation. I hung up and sat in my apartment, staring at the wall, trying to process what I'd just learned. Someone had walked into my cafeteria, approached the salad bar while I was cooking, and poisoned a doctor's food. They'd done it in a busy hospital cafeteria at peak lunch hour, surrounded by witnesses and security cameras. That took confidence, planning, desperation, or all three. Hello. Before we continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without prior notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, give me that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, from what city are you watching the video? I love meeting each of the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes a difference. Let's interact. Now, where was I? Right. I just learned that someone had deliberately poisoned Dr. Reeves using insulin hidden in salad dressing. The next morning, I met with two detectives from the city police department, Detective Sarah Chen and Detective Robert Garcia, both looking like they'd rather be investigating literally any other crime than attempted murder in a hospital cafeteria. Walk me through your memory of the lunch service, Detective Chen said, pulling out a notebook. Did you notice anyone acting strangely? Anyone who paid unusual attention to Dr. Reeves or her food? I tried to remember, but it had been a busy lunch rush. 50 or 60 people moving through the cafeteria, grabbing trays, making selections, paying at the register. I saw hundreds of faces every day, most of them blurring together into a stream of scrubs and white coats and visitor badges. There was one guy, I said slowly, a memory surfacing, at the salad bar, right around the time Dr. Reeves would have been there. He dropped his tray, made kind of a commotion. I remember being annoyed because it interrupted the lunch flow, made people have to navigate around the mess. Detective Garcia leaned forward. Describe him. Mid-40s, maybe. White guy. Average height, wearing business casual clothes. Not scrubs, not a white coat. He had a visitor badge, I think. I remember thinking he seemed nervous, like he wasn't comfortable in the hospital. The detectives showed me security footage from the cafeteria cameras. Grainy, but clear enough to make out faces and movements. They fast-forwarded to 12:35 p.m., right before Dr. Reeves collapsed. I watched the screen as Dr. Reeves entered the cafeteria, made her selections at my station, then moved to the salad bar to add dressing and toppings. And there, right behind her, was the man I'd remembered. Business casual, visitor badge, nervous energy. As Dr. Reeves selected her dressing packet, he fumbled with his tray, dropped it with a clatter that made everyone nearby turn to look. In the confusion, his hand moved quickly, swapping Dr. Reeves's dressing packet with one from his pocket. It took maybe 3 seconds, smooth and practiced, and if you weren't specifically watching for it, you'd miss it completely. That's him, I said, pointing at the screen. That's the guy who dropped his tray. Detective Chen paused the footage and zoomed in on the man's face. Robert Kemp, she said, age 46, unemployed, lives about 20 miles from here. She looked at Detective Garcia. He's in the system, arrested twice for stalking, once for assault. All charges involve the same victim. Who? I asked. Dr. Sarah Reeves, Garcia said grimly. He was her patient about 8 years ago, became obsessed with her, thought they had a romantic connection when she was just providing medical care. She got a restraining order, had him arrested when he violated it. He served 18 months, got out on parole 3 years ago, supposed to maintain 500 feet distance from Dr. Reeves at all times. So he came to the hospital to poison her, I said. Use the cafeteria as cover because it's public and busy. Looks that way, Jen confirmed. She pulled out her phone and made a call. We need a warrant for Robert Kemp's residence and an APB for his arrest. Attempted murder of Dr. Sarah Reeves at Riverside Memorial Hospital. Within 4 hours, they'd arrested Kemp at his apartment. Found vials of insulin he'd stolen from a diabetes supply clinic. Detailed notes about Dr. Reeves's schedule and routines, and disturbing evidence that he'd been planning this for months. He'd learned her lunch schedule, knew she ate at the cafeteria most days, knew she always got Caesar salad with ranch dressing on the side. He'd practiced the dressing packet swap dozens of times, perfecting the distraction, and it was delusional, dangerous logic, the thinking of someone whose obsession had completely distorted reality. Dr. Reeves recovered fully after 2 days in the ICU. When she was released, she came down to the cafeteria to see me. She was pale, shaky, but alive and grateful. "I'm so sorry I scared you," she said. "I know what you must have thought when I collapsed after eating your food." "You saved your own life," I told her. "Figuring out what happened, telling people to check the insulin. That was brilliant medical thinking under impossible circumstances." She smiled weakly. 8 years of emergency medicine. "You learn to think clearly in crisis situations." She paused. "Marcus, I need you to know something. Robert Kemp targeted me, but he could have targeted anyone. He used the cafeteria because it was accessible and public, not because there was anything wrong with your food service or security. This wasn't your fault." "But it happened in my kitchen," I said, "in a space I'm responsible for. What if there are other people like Kemp? Other stalkers, other people with grudges against doctors or staff? How do I keep my cafeteria safe?" "You can't, Doctor," Reeves said bluntly. "Not completely. Hospitals are public spaces by necessity. Sick people and their families need access. But you can be vigilant, can watch for suspicious behavior, can trust your instincts when something feels wrong." The hospital implemented new security protocols after the incident. All condiment packets were moved behind the serving counter, dispensed only by staff. Security cameras were upgraded throughout the cafeteria. Staff received training on suspicious behavior indicators and emergency response procedures. The cafeteria became, in some ways, a more controlled and less welcoming space. But it was safer, and that mattered more than convenience. Robert Kemp pleaded guilty to attempted murder and multiple counts of stalking and restraining order violations. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison, with no possibility of parole. Dr. Reeves testified at his sentencing hearing, describing the terror of realizing she'd been poisoned. The violation of being stalked and targeted for years, the way his obsession had stolen her sense of safety. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady and strong, "I became a doctor to help people, to heal the sick and injured. I treated this man with the same care and professionalism I give all my patients. And he repaid that care by stalking me, threatening me, and eventually trying to murder me in my workplace. He needs to be removed from society to protect not just me, but any other healthcare provider who might become the object of his delusions." The judge agreed. 25 years. Kemp would be 71 years old before he'd be eligible for release. I kept working at Riverside Memorial, kept cooking my comfort food for 300 to 400 people per day. But I saw the cafeteria differently now. Saw the potential for danger in every tray, every interaction, every stranger with a visitor badge. Paid attention to people who lingered too long, watched staff too closely, seemed overly interested in hospital routines. 3 months after the incident, I noticed a man at the salad station. He wasn't doing anything obviously suspicious, but something about his body language caught my attention. The way he kept glancing at a nurse who was making her lunch selections, the intensity of his focus, the nervous energy. I walked over casually, positioned myself between him and the nurse. "Can I help you find something?" I asked, my voice friendly but my posture making it clear I was watching him. He startled, looked at me with wide eyes. No, I'm just getting lunch. His hand, which had been moving toward his pocket, dropped to his side. Let me get you a fresh dressing packet, I said, reaching past him to the condiment station. We keep the good ones back here now. Quality control issue. What kind would you like? The man stared at me for a moment, then grabbed his tray and walked quickly out of the cafeteria without paying, without getting his food. I made a note of his description, reported it to security, and watched the nurse finish her lunch safely, completely unaware she might have just been targeted. Security reviewed the footage and identified the man as Dennis Moore, who had no official connection to the hospital, but had been banned from the premises 2 years earlier for harassing staff. He was arrested the next day, found to have a backpack full of various medications and detailed notes about hospital staff schedules. Another stalker, another dangerous obsession, another person who saw the hospital as a place to target healthcare workers. How many more are out there? I asked Detective Chen, who'd come to interview me about the incident. How many people are walking around with grudges against doctors and nurses, looking for opportunities to hurt them? More than you'd think, she said grimly. Healthcare workers are at high risk for violence, stalking, and harassment. Patients develop fixations. Families blame doctors for bad outcomes. Disturbed individuals target hospitals because they're accessible public spaces. She paused. What you did today, noticing that guy's behavior and intervening, you might have saved that nurse's life. I'm just a cook, I said. I'm not security. I'm not a cop. I just want to make food that helps people feel better. You're a cook who pays attention, Chen corrected, who trusts his instincts, who doesn't ignore warning signs. In a public space like a hospital, that kind of vigilance is invaluable. The hospital administration recognized my actions with a commendation and a small bonus. But more importantly, they implemented a hospital-wide training program for all staff, not just security, on recognizing and responding to suspicious behavior. Cafeteria workers, janitors, parking attendants, volunteers, everyone who interacted with the public received training on threat assessment and emergency protocols. Reeves came back to the cafeteria regularly after she recovered. Always ordered the Caesar salad, always with ranch dressing, refusing to let Kemp's attack change her routines or intimidate her. We became friendly in the way that regular customer and cook become familiar. Small talk about weather and workload, occasional jokes about hospital food quality. One day, about 6 months after the poisoning, she lingered after finishing her lunch. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" she said. "Why do you still work here? After everything that happened, after seeing what hospitals can be like, why stay?" I thought about it for a moment. "Because people need to eat," I said. "Doctors and nurses working 12-hour shifts need decent food to keep going. Scared families waiting for news about their loved ones need comfort food that reminds them things can be okay. Patients recovering from surgery need meals that help them heal." I paused. What happened with Kemp was terrible. But it doesn't change the fact that feeding people is important work. She smiled. "That's a good answer. And for what it's worth, your chicken Caesar salad is legitimately the best thing in this hospital. I still work at Riverside Memorial Hospital, still cook comfort food for hundreds of people every day. But I also watch the salad bar like a hawk. Notice people who linger too long or pay too much attention to specific staff members. Trust my instincts when something feels wrong. I've reported suspicious behavior 7 times in the 3 years since Dr. Reeves was poisoned. 5 of those reports led to banned individuals being removed from the hospital. 1 led to an arrest for stalking. 1 was a false alarm. Just an anxious family member who didn't know how to navigate the cafeteria. Better safe than sorry, Detective Chen told me. Better to report something that turns out to be nothing than to ignore something that turns out to be dangerous. Dr. Reeves eventually left Riverside Memorial, took a position at a hospital in another state where she could practice medicine without the constant reminder of the attack. Before she left, She came to the cafeteria one last time, ordered her Caesar salad with ranch dressing, ate it slowly, savoring every bite. "I'm going to miss this," she said when she returned her tray. "Not just the food, but knowing someone's watching out for us, knowing you're paying attention. Take care of yourself," I told her, "and if you ever need someone to check the insulin again, you know who to call." She laughed, the kind of laugh that held both trauma and healing. "I hope I never need that service again, but if I do, you'll be my first call. I'm a hospital cafeteria cook." A doctor collapsed after eating my food and whispered, "Check the insulin." And in investigating what happened, I learned that hospitals are vulnerable spaces, that healthcare workers are targeted by dangerous people, and that sometimes the person best positioned to protect them isn't security or police, but the cook who's paying attention. I learned that my job isn't just about following food safety protocols and making palatable comfort food. It's about creating a space where exhausted medical professionals can take a break, where they can trust that their food is safe, where someone's watching out for them the way they watch out for their patients. Dr. Reeves was poisoned by a stalker who used my cafeteria as his weapon, but she survived because she was smart, because she trusted her medical training even in crisis, because she had the presence of mind to whisper, "Check the insulin," with what might have been her last conscious words. And I survived because I learned to see my kitchen differently, not just as a place to cook and serve food, but as a front line in protecting vulnerable healthcare workers from people who wish them harm. Every lunch service is now an exercise in vigilance. Every stranger with a visitor badge is someone I observe carefully. Every instinct that something's wrong is taken seriously. Because in a hospital, where people come to heal, there are also people who come to harm. And sometimes, the only thing standing between a stalker and his victim is a cook who noticed someone acting strangely at the salad bar. I check the insulin every day now. Not literally, but figuratively. I check the people, the behaviors, the patterns. I watch for danger hiding in plain sight. I protect the protectors, the doctors and nurses who spend their lives caring for others. That's my job now. Cook and guardian, server of comfort food, and sentinel against those who'd use that comfort as cover for violence. Dr. Bushimon. Reeves collapsed after eating my food. She whispered, "Check the insulin." And in doing so, she didn't just save her own life. She taught me that vigilance is as important as hygiene in a hospital kitchen, that paying attention can stop violence before it starts, that sometimes the most important ingredient in hospital food service isn't the food at all. It's the cook who's watching.